Hello, welcome to my cellar. If you've been here before, welcome back. If you haven't, where the hell you been? Alright, we'll jump right in tonight. When talking about ruins, I had read somewhere to create the building when it was being used and kept up and then ruin it. That way the ruins make sense. Yeah, okay, that's a great idea. And you want to know an even easier way to do that? You don't have to draw the building yourself. Go find the plans. National Geographic, go to their website and look for castle floor plans and stuff, and you'll find a gazillion of them all. Castle floor plans, historic castle floor plans, and you'll find a gazillion of them. And you get them, then you little modification here, a little modification there, and it's yours, and ruin it. Perfect idea. Again, the ecology, the more layers down below, okay, castle on the hill, and the more layers down it goes, the higher the hill, the more likelihood that over a period of time, an opening will have created a minor landslide, landfall, whatever, and that's how critters get in and den up in there. Well, there's no better way than to look at some old castle layouts. And I'm not talking about little Norman castles. I'm talking about some of those fairy tale castles in Austria. Those are the ones you want to look at. Look at the extremes. The little ones can be great too, but look at them in terms of expanse and area and how long it'll take to get through. Great way to do it though. Glad to hear you're on the mend. Sorry to hear you're under the weather. I hope you feel better soon. I do. I'm getting over the head cold. It's nearly gone. Thanks for answering my question. I don't remember which one it was. My perspective is always informative. that's a good comment. I'm sure you didn't mean it maliciously, but that could mean so many things. Could mean that you really enjoy my perspective. Very could mean that it's a dumb shit. And okay, well, there's the dumb shit view. Though I'm sure that's not the case. But you can see how that's kind of open-ended there. Every time a new edition is released, a large percentage of players stay with the old version. It will happen with 5e, just like how some of us still play basic or advanced. All right, and then someone commented after this comment about what do you consider a large percentage? Well, I don't know what is a large percentage. There's always, a percentage of people who see no need to try the newest whiz bang. I'm an extreme one, but I shouldn't be seen as that. I found the one I like, and I never had a reason to find another one that I would have liked better. And there are some people, when the new whiz-bang model comes out, will go, yeah, I don't care. They got nothing to offer me. I like what I got. Just like some people buy a new car every year. Other people go, yeah, I'll buy another car when I see one that impresses me. And that's a good way. It's a good way to approach it, in my opinion. In my opinion. Remember, everything I say on here is in my opinion. And it's true. There will be some that stay, and there'll be some that go to want to see what's the next best thing. There's always been that crowd of people. That's what, in some cases, drives sales of innovations. Okay, the first guy that made a mechanical corn kernel remover off the husks, the cobs, whatever that is. Okay, somebody said, well, I think I can make a better one, and did, and it didn't work. People didn't want it, and somebody else said, well, I'll make a better one, and it did, and so some of the people bought the new one, and some of them said, well, my old one still works good. I'll just keep cranking my corn away. we need both. We need all those aspects of the market to stay viable. Referring to the quality of the old books, all my AD&D 1E books were handed down to me from my father, and all but the Player's Handbook are in great condition. Had to retire the Player's Handbook with a reprint just last year. Otherwise, they have survived 2 generations of use and going on now 3 with my son. In comparison, I found a group that played 5e. When I joined, they just gave me their player handbook that was completely falling apart after 3 or 4 years of use. And somebody chimed in after that, probably made in China, then banged around in a cargo container for days. Well, that's no excuse, no matter where it's made or how it got here. If it's packed well, it'll make it. Doesn't mean who made it. It's just not made as well. There are many different ways to bind books. What we used on those first books was what we thought at the time was the best, the one that would last the longest, be the most value for the buck, because we knew that what we were asking per book was steep. We were right. Our kind were the best. And of course now that is the best kind of binding you can do, and it's also one of the more expensive ones. But you get what you pay for. Oh yeah, armymen. We used BB guns, Aquanet hairspray, and a lighter for flamethrowers, etc. Looking back, it's no wonder our parents refused to buy us more. Well, see, that's why I bought my own. But to be fair, now I didn't melt them with hairspray or anything like that. But there were a few casualties over the battles because I like to plant ladyfinger, little itty bitty firecrackers all over the battlefield, and I also had a couple of cannons that were the right bore that they could shoot those little ladyfingers across the sandbox. And of course, when they went off, any shrapnel knocked over the soldier, he was wiped out. And occasionally, they'd come right down next to him. He'd get a bad burn and get retired, or if it was a fizzler, he'd look like he'd been flamethrowed when he caught the whole blast of the powder just fizzling and not exploding. But oh yeah, now BB guns, no, that was too. No. For one thing, it was a little dangerous because I was playing in about a 4x4 foot sandbox, and BB guns would not have been. Yeah, shoot your eye out would be a reality there. But yeah, I also for a little while set model ships and model planes on fire and stupid shit that boys often do in their ignorance and innocence. Well, not so innocent, but certainly ignorant. You see, you should just bought your own. I don't think that Watsy Hasbro had the impetus for doing an about face. Had as the impetus for doing an about face the survey that they took, but rather the fact that the amount of people canceling their D&D Beyond subs brought the servers to their knees, along with the extreme social media backlash. No, I hate to say I told you so, but if you'll recall, go back, I've said from the beginning that I didn't believe that anybody would pay any attention to any survey. It was just a sop thrown to the masses. And seen as a sop. That's all it was. Here, we'll do a survey. Tell us what you like. And then of course, they wouldn't bother to read the survey. And if it said something they really didn't like, they wouldn't do it. But, it sounds good. Yes, all those subscriptions canceled and the servers crashing, absolutely. But I believe also that an equal part was played by 20 minutes of bad publicity on public radio. There have been many surveys done long before me on the demographics of various broadcasters' markets. And National Public Radio skews really high on smarts. I'm not saying anything that you can't find for yourself out there if you look at it. Just as in the last election cycle, there were some networks that skewed pretty dumb. Anyway, it had one of those networks that skewed pretty dumb done something about it. They could have laughed it off because of low viewership and who pays attention to them anyway. But that wasn't the case. The case was that a media outlet that a good proportion of their buyers, meaning their customers, of all their games, not just D&D, all of Hasbro, not Wizards of the Coast, who even many of the people who listen to public radio have heard of, or not, and there's many that won't have heard of it, but everybody's heard of Hasbro. And so they didn't want people deciding, well, Hasbro's a bunch of skanky buggers, and not buying Hungry Hippos and, whatever other, every other game under the sun almost is owned by Hasbro. But that's an argument, a debate for another time over a couple of beers or a doobie late at night. The feedback, the social media feedback was significant. One interesting outcome I heard about the whole kerfuffle is that the competitors were starting to sell out a physical product during the debacle itself. Pathfinder and Chaosium ran dry and have to print some more. Now that is voting with your wallet. Well, it certainly is, and I'll bet Pathfinder and Chaosium are just delighted as hell that happened. And I'm not saying anything against any of their products that were purchased. No, great. Sell out. Make money, guys. The proof will be 15, 18 months from now. How many are still playing those games that they rushed out in their fit of righteous indignation? And they might be. I don't know. Okay? I'm not denigrating the Pathfinder system, any Chaosium product. No, not at all. But we'll see. Was it a fad? Or was it real? I hope it's real, because I know people at these companies, and I'll be happy for them if they're doing well. Okay, next one. All right. Okay, this is an interesting one. Hope you're well, especially your troublesome toe. Well, it appears to me my toe is better. Question, is it okay to subject PCs to a Mexican standoff? Okay. In real life, a Mexican standoff is a confrontation where no possible strategy could deal victory to any one party. Okay. Well, I'm going to assume you know what it... Apparently, he didn't think I knew what a Mexican standoff was. And, golly, you watch out. You might not be able to call it that anymore. I don't know. As soon as the Hispanics get organized and powerful enough to make social change, we won't be calling things like that we won't be calling it Mexican, because that'll be a slur. Anyway, but in the world of fantasy role-playing, the collective brain power, whimsy, and love of fun, the players enough reasons to warrant throwing up a Mexican standoff just to see what happens. I imagine some players would be pissed off if they felt they had been given a situation they couldn't solve to their victory. Okay, I'll ask another question. Should every party expect to win every confrontation? How easily? Anyway, go back. But there's still a lot of room for some great play in situation where TPK and total non-player character K are guaranteed should someone's bow finger slip or temper fray. Our Mexican standoffs a classic situation for players to think outside the box, find a mutually agreeable solution, and gain valuable XP in the process. Are they just a DM self-indulgence taking players out of the game, i.e. collapsing their suspension of disbelief? Yeah, I personally can see no reason of putting the players into that type of thing. Now, there may come a time when, in pursuit of a goal in a campaign, they find themselves in a similar situation. And then, well, if you can't win and to keep going forward is likely to hurt, then you back up and you make a new plan. And any player that gets mad that they can't win, it's got a twisted ethic of how they play and why they play. Is every problem solvable? Hell no. Should it be? Hell no. Not even in a fantasy setting. Hell no. It's the idea that it should be that their players ought to get powerful enough to do it that's ruined the game in many aspects. Yeah, I wouldn't do that because I think as a DM, all you do is watch players take it out on each other or set each other up for bad outcomes in there. All right, this is a long one, a long question, but it's worth it. How do you feel about variable weapon damage dice? After having run old school D&D for a while, I found it just pulls players to always use the best weapons, swords, unless they had powerful magic weapons that aren't that. I think one and two-handed weapons dealing the same damage is kind of silly. Okay, we don't need to go any further than that. You're right. I absolutely prefer variable weapon damage, and I'll tell you why. The first 6 weeks I ran the campaign in Carbondale, I did not have Greyhawk. So we ran it straight out of the first 3 books. Everything was a D6. I wasn't happy with it as a DM. The players certainly were fussing and grumping and griping. And I was already thinking about making changes to the rules. And then I talked to Gary about it at one time and said, oh, well, yeah, that's why in Greyhawk. So he didn't send me a Greyhawk. I bought a Greyhawk. And so we immediately went over to variable damage. I think it just makes sense. However, I go a step farther in my extraordinary weapons, and that not all pluses are magical. Doesn't have to be an enchantment to be. It could be an exceptionally fine example of a weapon type. Exceptionally fine. And so therefore could do extra damage. Doesn't have to be magic to do that. Now, it depends on how fine you're going to make this weapon, what kind of pluses you give it. And you don't have to give it any pluses to hit, because that would be magic. Or you can, because actually, after all, we're just looking at draining hit points out of each other. Variable damage is where it's at. And when I make an extraordinary weapon, I'll usually pile on the damage in the hit rather than the advantage to hit. But that's just me. That's the way I like. I've always liked to have exceptional or extraordinary weapons that had pluses, but not because they were enchanted. And so, yeah, that factors in when you need a web. Only an enchanted weapon can strike something. Well, it's not enchanted. It's just exceptionally sharp or exceptionally strong or exceptionally flexible. Whatever weapon we're talking about. Absolutely. I like to do variable damage. I think it makes the most sense. And somebody asked her why, and they said, well, I want to hear what he says, and because I have played it both ways, and I much prefer variable damage. Have you thought about rewarding players for using lower damage dice weapons in terms of character development? It's a metagame problem that the players are choosing the highest damage dealing weapons. So you could legitimately metagame back by openly rewarding those players who use certain weapons as part of their character shtick or personal history. For example, your PC's father gave her this sword. It's a family heirloom. It only does D6 damage, but it does +2 damage against dire orcs, the nemesis of the PC's great-great-grandpappy who forged the sword. Sure. Why not? If you assess such thing in your campaign as DM deciding, awarding points that aren't strictly X number of hit dice equal, for stuff, then that would certainly be a part of role-playing to continue to play with a D6 short sword because it was your grandpappy's and whatever, would be a lot that would show a lot of character and would certainly help keep your alignment where you want it to be, so you stay in good with wherever you cast your lots. It's an interesting idea. Now, do you take it to, somebody with a real high dex, which is, what we all used in the old 6 charts, or 6 stats. High dex would be, a good archer or a good knife thrower. So you get somebody with a 17 dex, and they decide that they're going to, and here's something they can make up on their own and still earn the bonus points. They're gonna come to you and say, oh well, I found out my, was a knife thrower in the gypsy circus, in between assassination jobs, so I've taken up throwing knives, and they've got a propensity or a skill for using knives. Sure, why not? And while knives only might do, 4 points of damage for a throwing knife or whatever, if you get into critical hits or called shots, not something that I favor, but I know many do. What a great way to earn renown and honor than persisting with a less than optimal weapon. And besides, all the ones you choose not to use, you can always sell for good money. All right. That's on that. As for the new editions, there's a few reasons. One is that simply players migrate to the new one. So if you want to find a game, you have to migrate as well. Well, perhaps. You might just have to be patient You might go look at what they're doing and be seditious. Look around that table, see who's not having a great time, and end up forming a group out of the malcontents that really didn't like the jump. I know if you, depending upon where you are, it can be hard to find a gaming group. But if you look hard enough and long enough in the right places, I believe you finally will. You may think that they're all raving lunatics and not be a fit. Or you might find out that, wow, a couple, three of those people, great gamers, and you have a lot in common. Now, I know it's harder for lady gamers to find a new group than it is guy gamers. But it's not easy for a lot of male gamers either, to just make yourself vulnerable and try to find a new circle of gaming friends. Because they are friends at one level or another. Yeah, there's a lot of people that have they're the same people that buy those cars right away. As it's newest, it must be the best. Or, fearing to miss out on something that everybody else has. But the true quality will show out in the end. And if it's a good game, some people will stay with it. But if it's not, more people will go back to what they were doing. Pardon me, I'd share, but I don't think one can of Dew will go that far. And there are some people, yes, that have them all to collect them. And that's a legitimate pursuit as well. I've got a number of games down here that are kind of stinkers. But at the time, they didn't look like stinkers, obviously. Okay, what else we got? Jesus. That's it. What do you know? There's been some interesting developments, of course. There's always interesting developments in our industry now. The skeptics are saying, oh, well, they're still going to trash the OGL. And the optimists are having tea in the garden with unicorns and pixies, all happy about things have won. We don't know yet who's right and who's wrong. I do believe that there was a significant rollback on the part of Wizards and Hasbro. But we'll see what it really means. In 6 months down the road, we'll see what it really means. And we won't really know until then. There was I missed a cut and paste or something. Anyway, there was somebody that made a comment about they enjoyed watching the videos and everything. Not the one that was a faint praise, but they've been watching them for a while, and so I went back and I looked, and I started doing this in 2017. Now this is the 249th consecutively numbered one, but there was a bunch before I started numbering them, 6 or 8 at least. And of course there's a whole bunch of other stuff that's on there that aren't curmudgeons. But I had no idea it'd been doing it that long. September in 17, I guess, is when at least that's when I transferred over one of the first videos I had made on YouTube, I'd made it on Facebook and transferred it over to YouTube. So it's been a while. What else is new? Oh, well, next week is Ant-Man. And Jim and I will definitely be going to Ant-Man, no doubt about it. I haven't heard any entries yet or any interest in the coin design contest. mint condition copy of one of my adventures, and several t-shirts out of my t-shirt drawer, all from various conventions. You saw the coin, this big, 2 sides. Go back and look at the last one and listen to all the specifications. What's coming up? Valentine's Day is coming up. And nothing on the gaming radar until, for me at least, till GaryCon in March. So I'll quit wasting your time and bid you all Dodata Gobi. Hello, and welcome to my cellar.
He's the curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs. Still quite a feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Last man around when them rates went down. Called in Gary in that Lake Geneva town. Hey Gary, it's an awful mess. Let me edit, we'll have success. D&D and Dragon Magazine. He's a curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs, but he's still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Magic missile, it's a mortar shell. Make it hit in the first level spell. Brought psionics to the game to attack that wizard's brain. ESR and fantasy, collection of micro armory. Titan with tramp under a tree, high as could be. He's the curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs, but he's still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar.